Welcome back to the Real Recovery Show. I'm joined here with three of these very beautiful ladies, and we're going to talk about our next topic. But before we do, we just want to say that we're really grateful for the wonderful response to our show. It's been overwhelming, and there's been so many people that have also reached out to this radio station and said that they wanted to be part of something as well like this. And so we're super excited. And joining me today is Jennifer Mackey, who will share a little bit about herself.
Hi, thanks, Lisa. I'm so grateful to be here. My name is Jennifer. I am a person in long-term recovery for over 20 years. I have a couple daughters. I'm 47 years old. Been in Vegas since 2007, and I just do a lot in the community, and I'm just really grateful to be here.
Thank you. And also we have Michelle Cooper.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm Michelle Cooper. I've been in recovery for almost 3 whole years now. I am a local hairstylist, mobile hair and makeup here in Las Vegas at the young age of 51.
And she's amazing.
Thank you.
And of course, you know Tay-Tay. Say hi.
Hello again. It's me, Tay-Tay.
And me. So what we're going to talk about today is what addiction looks like. Oftentimes when somebody is new to recovery or they have absolutely no conception whatsoever about what addiction looks like, they will end up thinking that an addict is somebody or an alcoholic is somebody who is homeless, has lost everything, and lives under a bridge. And why this is so harmful for somebody to be able to be open to and find recovery or any kind of help whatsoever is that the part of the mind that wants to check out, that wants to self-medicate, will use that image to push away any kind of real honesty that a person can have about whether or not they really have a problem. And they'll say, well, at least I don't look like that. I don't have that. I still have my house. I still have my car. I have 3 cars, so I can't be doing that bad. I have this amazing job. I look amazing. I have the most amazing spouse, whatever. Mm-hmm. And what they're not realizing is that what they're telling themselves is that they're not really going to look for any kind of solution to what's really going on unless they lose the children, unless they lose the house, the job, the spouse, their health, their freedom, unless they end up getting pulled over because they drank while they drove, or their doctor tells them that that the stuff that they're experiencing with their health is because of possible alcohol or drug use. And of course, there are other addictions that we're going to be talking about today other than alcohol and drugs. But what we're really going to be talking about primarily initially is alcohol and drugs, because those are the ones that have usually the biggest consequences the quickest, even though some people seem to be able to stretch it out for years. Mm-hmm. Although with women, ironically, go faster than men do. This must be like a hormone thing. Men love that. They love blaming it on hormones. And so what we're going to talk about is what a problem really looks like, what addiction really looks like, and what it really looks like is not what you would think. Mm-hmm. It's more about the experience you're having with the substance or the behavior, and not so much how much you're consuming. It's whether or not you're using it to change the way you feel, and the alternative is unbearable to you. It's whether or not you use it to be part of, and you feel like you couldn't be able to have the confidence if you didn't use those things. And so alternatively, if you felt like you had to go without that substance or the alcohol, that you would have to stay home and that you couldn't be part of anything. It's also about feeling like in order to do it, people will like you, they'll accept you, you're considered normal. It's kind of crazy, and we alluded to it last week, about how when you grow up and in our society, it's really kind of sold to you that you can't wait until one day you're going to be an adult or of age and you'll be able to drink or party or buy things or do whatever it is that adults get to do. And it must look so amazing to have that kind of power to be able to do that, that children earlier and earlier and earlier are doing it anyway and bragging about how they don't need an ID, or if they do, they get it, and not necessarily a legal way. But they do it. They party, they pay money to other people to get the stuff for them because they want to be an adult already, as if being an adult means that you can self-medicate and make your world smaller and smaller. But they see it as glamorous. And so even in our movies, our TV shows, everything, it glamorizes it. You're cool if you're smoking a cigarette. You're cool if you're getting lit. You're cool if you're drinking and able to drink other people under the table. You're cool. Tay-Tay?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I kind of alluded to this last week that, I got sober pretty young. I was 24, and I had actually written a list of things that I would have to have happen before I would quit. And I literally crossed everything off that list except for turning 25. And and to me, though, it was just normal behavior for a 24-year-old to do. It was just what we did at the time. And yeah, it's just really interesting now to look back at the things that happened and how much denial I was in. And how much wreckage I didn't have to create for myself.
Perfect. So we're going to talk about different characteristics that you might be exhibiting and experiences that you might be having that you would never think have anything to do with addiction. For instance, a lot of people think that an alcoholic is somebody who drinks every day. Most alcoholics don't drink every day in their addiction. Some are considered periodics. They'll go for periods of time relatively dry, meaning without drinking, and then something will happen in their life, maybe the season, maybe the time of the year, maybe something, holidays or whatever, and that person will drink for a while and they'll bottom again and they'll tell themselves, I can't do this, I'm not going to do this anymore, and they'll stop. And they'll think, see, I stopped. I can't be an alcoholic. And those are considered periodics. And then there's the person who doesn't drink in any kind of structured, scheduled manner. They do it as more of a reactor. They drink or they do drugs because of how they feel. So if they have scary thing happen at work, they'll get very uncomfortable in their own skin, and next thing you know, they're thinking, God, I need a drink. When I get off work, I'm going to go hang out with people and I'm going to go drink. Or, wow, I could really use a cigarette. Or, wow, I could really use this. And so that's also the person who is considered an alcoholic. Now, we won't say specifically to another person, you're an alcoholic. This is the kind of thing that you get to self-diagnose. And so that's what's so cool about this show, is that you get to find yourself in this and to see whether or not you yourself can see that you have a problem. Then there's the binge user, the one that goes and hangs out with his friends, or just plans his whole week to be good. And then when the weekend comes, he's just going to spend the whole weekend drunk or drinking or partying or whatever. And then he plans it so that when Sunday night rolls around, he knows exactly what he needs to do, what he thinks he needs to take for this, to come out of that, to bring it down this. And he's his own little chemist, and he's going to make sure, I'm saying he, but it's she too, so that when the time comes for him to be back to his routine, back to being respectful, back to being able to function in his society, he's able to do it. Shake off his hangover, balance out. And that to him or her, that's manageable to them. Not even realizing that's insane, And so we're here to talk about that today. Jennifer?
Yeah, I think you said a lot. I think that addiction looks like unmanageability, right? I think a lot of times we're looking for those greater symptoms, the DUIs, and we're looking for incarceration, and we're looking for the kids getting removed from the home by Child Protective Services. And for a lot of people, the danger is that if those things don't happen, they don't think they need any help.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I think one of the biggest issues, too, is for a lot of us, there was a point of time, I know at least I could speak for myself, that I knew that if I kept going, I was going to have a real problem. But at that time, I remember where I was. I remember everything about that day. I was standing outside of this bar that we had in my house, and there was a whole bunch of really old syrupy type stuff left There was a party that my parents had the night before, and I'm over by the bar, and I'm picking through what's there, and I'm deciding whether or not I should cross my own child boundary of whether or not I should drink this really disgusting stuff that was in this bottle that was left open overnight, that I have no idea what even was in it anymore. And I recognized that, wow, like I'm so uncomfortable in my own skin. Mm-hmm. And because there was also a lot of food addiction in my house, I knew that that's what people did in my house too. And I thought, wow, I have no idea how I'm supposed to do this thing called life. I was depressed. I was suicidal by the time I was 12. I isolated a lot, and I compared my insides to other people's outsides. And I was nervous all the time, and I internalized everything. And I did what my family I did what my parents did. And I told myself, like most people who grow up in addiction, and by the way, you don't have to grow up in addiction to become an addict, but I did. And I told myself what most people say when they grow up in an alcoholic or a dysfunctional home: I will not be like them. I won't do that. But when you grow up in an environment where the only thing that you see modeled for you, the solutions, if you will, are drinking, smoking, eating, angry outbursts, if you see this and you don't see anything else, there is no tools for you. You don't know how to live life on life's terms. You don't know how to feel your feelings. You could try all you wish, but you're not going to be able to turn out anything less than what your parents did. And honestly, I ended up surpassing them. Not proud to say that I ended up, flaming codependent with a myriad of addictions: alcohol, food, sex, drugs, cigarettes, workaholism. It's just switching seats on the Titanic with all the different addictions that I ended up doing. And the last thing I'll say is the reason why I did it that way is because I saw my dad not seem to have any big consequences to drinking the way that he did, smoking the way that he did, eating the way that he did. Because from my mind, I didn't know what a problem looked like entirely. All I knew is that my father was emotionally unavailable. All I knew is that he spent the majority of his time not with me. All I knew is that he was a workaholic. I knew that he did all that, but I knew that he did a lot of different things, I felt, so he wouldn't bottom too hard from one of them. But I will say this, at the end of the game, when he would say, I just want to be alone, people just leave me alone, because he didn't really have the capacity of really dealing with life on life's terms. He didn't have the tools, right, that we somewhere need to learn. His life became, in a room, in a building in New York, very isolated, very alone, and it was to watch him do that. It became normal. It became, there wasn't anything anybody could do with the way that he chose to live, But somebody once said to me that treat people as an inspiration or an ominous warning. If you're judging somebody else, you get to do what they're doing and be in their position if you do what they do and experience anything that they're experiencing without some sort of help or tools. But if you see somebody, and there's no coincidences, so if somebody ends up coming into your path and they overcame something that you might be struggling with, maybe not on the same level that they're going through, but you're still struggling with it, see them as an inspiration because they're facing it and they're healing it.
I remember as a kid watching, my grandmother was quite the entertainer. So alcohol, when she would have them at her little card parties or different things that she would do, like it really looked fun. Like I would view all these adults as people that had it together, quote unquote, right? And they were having a good time. and I would, I liked the way the ice cubes sounded in the glass. And when they weren't there, I would get the glass out of the cupboard and put the ice cubes in it and swirl it around, and I didn't even know what I was doing and why I thought that was great.
Right.
It looked glamorous. When I'm 11 years old on water skiing on Lake Shasta, and I see the houseboat full of people drinking with all the beer cans. At 11, I wanted to do that when I was 21. That's all I looked forward to. Right? Yeah. And I didn't understand why my grandmother said she was no longer going to serve alcohol at the parties because of the one gentleman's behavior, because I saw nothing wrong with it.
Right. Right. Do you have something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I grew up in kind of like a law enforcement type of family. And one of my mom's friends would have these parties for like 4th of July. And so I'm with all these cops, COs and whatever, and they're just drinking and having fun and whatever, and giving me a drink here and there, and at a very young age. And I just thought this was the normal thing. And the irony of many years later, the woman that used to throw those parties got sober herself, and then I got sober the next year. And so it's just really interesting to see what we thought was normal, what we thought was acceptable, and how even the people that were a part of it could see the difference now. The people that were part of it had to change some things too. And so for me, that was a pretty big aha of okay, well, maybe this wasn't the normal thing to do. If she's getting sober, she was a cop. So who am I? So.
Perfect. A lot of times we make subtle changes in our lives that we don't know have anything to do with our budding addiction. We might have healthier friends at some point that don't want to hang out with us if we drink that way, or if we do drugs that way, or maybe they're thinking, they need to get a little healthier and they don't really want to go out on this night, and you get to a place where you feel like, God, they're so boring, or man, I feel judged by them and I feel uncomfortable and I don't really know why, but I don't really want to hang out with that person anymore. Maybe I want to hang out more with these people. And a lot of times we make these subtle little shifts. I want to hang out with that person. Oh, God, they are bad. They are worse than me. God, thank God I'm not like that, but I do like to hang out with them. And sometimes we'll compare and we'll say, I feel like you guys get me. It's kind of interesting when I got into recovery, how I felt like the people that I met in recovery were people that I would have also, in many cases, met in addiction. But the difference is they were so focused on the problem. They were so focused on destruction and acting out and checking out. And the people that I was meeting still had the same cool personality, because I love alcoholics and addicts. We are awesome. But I digress. Because I was also attracted to them before, it was useful now in my recovery to find the people that vibed with me, but the ones that were focused on the solution.
Right. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Okay, Tay-Tay?
I was just going to say, I was thinking about the people that we would hang out with, and I would hide how much I was drinking and using from the people I was drinking and using with. Because I didn't want them to think it was too much, which is a crazy thought to have. But it's just interesting that now a lot of those people have changed from the problem to the solution, and to just see that over the years, because we all were looking for something that we weren't getting already. We were all looking for a solution in this drink or this drug or that man or, whatever it may have been. And just now to look at it differently is really cool.
And also, an amazing thing happens is that because we are attracted to each other, our personalities, the way we think, the way we are, and because we did experience a lot of people that we got close to who hopefully hadn't passed away, because we did lose a lot of people in addiction. We saw a lot of people die. But what's cool is that when one of us gets help, it starts to shift everything.
Yeah.
There's this pamphlet that we sell in the recovery store that's called The Merry-Go-Round of Denial. And in it, it talks about how in a family network or a friendship network or anything where everybody's personality kind of enables and supports everybody else's behavior in it, that when one person starts to make a real strong change, it changes the balance of the entire thing, and everybody else in it has to make an adjustment for it. And whether or not they make an adjustment to be healthier or make an adjustment from a more destructive mentality, that's up to them and their path. It's not a guarantee that when one person finds recovery or starts to do healing things that the rest of them are going to follow suit. But, and this is prevalent in 12-step recovery, the concept of attraction, not promotion, what ends up happening is that they will see, maybe not right away, because people have a habit of remembering who you were and not who you are, and especially family members.
Right.
But
right.
like you can go and you can heal a lot, and 2 years not see a family member, and then go to Thanksgiving dinner and they're just talking to you like you never did anything different, and they see you that way. But we've all experienced where people we've known have gone, what are you doing? What are you doing different? There's something about you. Or maybe the way you react now to things is not the way you reacted before.
Right.
And maybe now you have a little bit more peace. Maybe now you're able to listen to them better. Maybe you're less defensive. Maybe you look healthier. Maybe you lost a lot of weight or gained it during your addiction, because we can go either way. And maybe now you look healthier. Maybe your attitude seems to be more proactive rather than destructive. Maybe you're more reliable than you were before, and you didn't think you had a problem. That's the thing about addiction, too, is that we always think that we don't affect anybody else.
Yeah.
We always think that whatever we're doing, if anybody's getting harmed, it's just us. And that is probably the biggest delusion, because if you think about the merry-go-round of denial, everybody you have super close to you in your life, everything that you're doing is either affecting them in a positive way or in a negative way.
Yeah.
And so when we start to think about that, we start to get a little bit more motivated and maybe being the light rather than the darkness in any of our interactions.
Yeah, and that idea of attraction rather than promotion. When I first stopped drinking and using, I wanted to scream it from the rooftops and tell everybody about this amazing thing I was learning and this amazing thing I was doing by not drinking and using. And I've kind of learned over the years that if I yell too loud, it's going to make people deaf. And so for me, the best thing to do has been to show people by my actions and my deeds and the things I'm learning and the ways I'm growing. And I feel like it's really worked, because I've had many people over the years contact me and be like, hey, what are you doing differently? And it's just a really cool thing to do. So,
and that's not just people who are people who have never been to any kind of rehab or ever been through any kind of specific therapy modality or 12-step program or anything. Not just people that need to know of all the options of what to do. Also people that were already doing some of that stuff and then might have had some sort of life experience that shifted them to where they decided, I don't really need to do that stuff anymore. I know it really helped me then. But now, geographic, I'm living in a new place. I have a new boyfriend or girlfriend. I have a new job. I'm super fabulous now. And thank you so much for all the things that helped me get here. But that's the past. And I will, at some point, maybe do some of those tools. But right now, I need to focus on getting my new place together and getting my this and doing this and being really good at my job and maybe my relationship that I just got into. I need to have balance, I need to have a life, after all, shouldn't I be happy? And so I know Michelle and I were talking about somebody that we love very dearly that had moved to another state, and she was in recovery, and we talked a lot all the time. And when she moved, the conversations became less and less and less, at least between her and I. And I just wanted to give her space and trust that she had what she needed, and she knew what she needed to do for herself. And then also, attraction, not promotion, that if anybody ever needs me, they can reach out to me, but I'm not going to chase somebody or try to force anything because I don't really know. I'm not going to play God in their life. I don't really know what their highest good looks like and their path. And Michelle could speak to this too. Like this was a very interesting hit super home situation because she is in another state. And because of the stuff that's going on in Michelle and my life right now, it's not really like we can just, have a cape grow out of our spine and just fly over there and do all the things that, in our heart of hearts we might want to do. But even if you do go there and scoop her up and take her there and take her here, there's no guarantee that she's going to do whatever it is that she needs to do to be okay. Right, Michelle?
Yeah, that's definitely been one of the hardest lessons is you can't save them. You watch them slip away from us slowly, and you just try to encourage them and love them and hope they kind of find their way back to the light. But when they get to that dark spot and there's nothing you can do but pray for them and hope the best for them and just encourage. But it takes what it takes sometimes. Man, when you can't just put your cape on and pack your suitcase and be like, dun-ta-da, here I come to save the day. Ta-da! That's the first lesson I learned and the hardest lesson I've learned so far. Because it's just, you're like, I'm a mom. I'm a protector. I'm a mama bear. When you need me, I'm there. And when I can't just, teleport and be right there for somebody and take them by the hand, which is what this person needed, just come cuddle with me. And I'm like, I wish I could, but I can't, I can be here for you on the phone, FaceTime, whatever it takes, but you got to save yourself, sis. Like, I'm here to help, but you just to watch them diminish like that it's incredibly hard. It's the hardest thing for me.
You're exactly right. So just the same thing that Lisa was talking about earlier, even when it's about attraction rather than promotion, right? I mean, we can meet people where they're at, but we don't do them any good service or any type of help by staying there, right? When we say meet people where they're at, it means in terms of understanding, free of judgment, right? But we have to continue to do what we need to do in terms of where we're at for our growth, for our recovery. So our decisions, our thoughts, and our actions separate us from people sometimes, right? And it's painful. But if we're going to be a light, we have to be a light. And so I just think it just goes right back to that, attraction rather than promotion.
Yeah, we can't be focused on the addiction. We can't be focused on the person who is not doing what is truly helpful ultimately for their sobriety, for their health, for their mental well-being, for their family life, for everything. And you know what? I had a problem way longer in certain areas than I would even admit to myself. And there's no way that anybody could have told me in a way that I could hear it that A, that Lisa, you have a problem, and B, that there is a solution, because I was closed off to it. I was closed off to the idea that what was a problem was a problem. And I also had these ideas that, well, I have trauma and you don't know me and you don't know what I have to do to be okay. And so the coping skills that I developed became my little teddy bear. Right. They became my woo-woo. There was no way that I was going to let anybody rip that away from me. And I didn't feel like the people that were telling me I had a problem were necessarily doing amazingly in their life. So I just felt like, well, I don't want what you have either. But it was so clever that my the disease part of my mind would actually set things up that way. It would set it up where I wouldn't really want anything that anybody had as far as a solution around me other than what I was doing. You know, it pushed people away that looked like, in fact, I remember one time I was on a dating app, and I mean, it wasn't just one time on a dating app, but this particular time on the dating app, and I remember I was flipping through, and I was like, oh, and then I saw this one ad, and this person was, at least in their ad, they were really good at writing an ad, and the pictures were really good and whatever, but they were like, oh my God, they're into this, they're into hiking, they're into all these things, and blah, blah, blah. I was exhausted by the time I read their ad. And I also said to myself, wow, that person's perfect. But I could not date that person. I could not write to that person, because the way I felt about myself and what I felt was going on in my life, I was like, never mind. And then I had this moment when I swiped left, and if you don't know what that is because you're not on a dating app, it means to say, hell no. But when I swiped left, I had this like out-of-body experience where I became very aware of my reason for saying no to this person was not because there was anything wrong with them.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It was because I felt like they were too healthy for me.
That's right.
You know? So we choose in our thinking to stay sick. You know, we choose it. It's our little comfort zone. It's our little pity pot. It's our own story that I carried everywhere I went, into every situation that I went. You know, like I would go, and if I made a new friend or I dated a new person, you could tell that I was dating because my first date would be telling them my entire life story.
Right.
And how horrible it was. And if you feel sorry for me in just the right, sweet way, I will know that you are a good person and that I want you in my life. But really what it was is that I can manipulate you, and I could feel like somebody's got my back, but really to enable me, because they would be the ones that would act like it's okay. And that's okay, Lisa, that you do this. That's okay that that's going on. I mean, I see your life is so hard, you know? And let me tell you, I've had some things go down. You know, we have all had some things go down, you know, and even by our society standards, I could use anything that happened in my childhood, in my 20s, and say, hey, listen, if you had this, you would drink, you would use drugs, you would do all this too.
Right.
But there comes a point when you get tired. You get tired of hearing the story that you're telling. You get tired of feeling like you're stuck in this loop of Groundhog Day, of addiction and depression, or suicidal ideations, or anxiety, or fear, or isolation. You get to a point where you realize that there has to be a better way of doing these things. And something happens. There's a tipping point where you start getting to a point where you realize, you know what, this might have been the thing that I was using to feel better, but it no longer does what I thought it even did. And now I'm at a place where there has to be another way, because I'm at this jumping off point, you know, where I can't imagine my life with it, and I can't imagine my life without it. And so there has to be, please God, there has to be another way.
Yeah, I was going to say that there's also a piece of that where that's all we knew, and that's that feeling of, you know, woe is me was the most comfortable place to be, because we didn't know any better. And to think of like the way that today we take those experiences and we help others is so against the grain and so like just mind-blowing to people. And if you watch, you know, movies about addiction and that sort of stuff, the things that you see happen to these people, like it's just, you're like, is that real life? But we all know that it is, because like we've had that tenfold, you know? And so it's just really interesting to be on the other side of that, and what real recovery looks like, and how like real people help real people.
Exactly. And nobody could ever tell me that I should stop doing something if the thing that I was being told that I should stop doing was the only thing I felt was helping me.
Right.
Or if it's the only thing you were comfortable with, because isn't knowing what is going to happen as the result of our action. There's comfort in knowing that. Even if it's miserable, even if it's uncomfortable, I kept doing the same thing because it didn't matter what the outcome was going to be. I would rather do that than choose to do something where I felt I would be unable to meet the requirement, right? Because being that comfortable uncomfortability, it's comfort in knowing. I'd rather know it was going to happen, even if it was terrible, than try to do something different for fear of the unknown. Right? Or the inability just to be able to fulfill that, like swiping left, right? Like I'd much rather swipe left than prove to myself one more time that my mind is right, that there's no way that I would fit right there.
Exactly. So, do we want to swipe right on a better life, or do we want to swipe left again and say maybe the show doesn't know what they're talking about, and maybe I don't really have a problem, and it's just a complete happenstance and accident that I should even be watching this? Or do we want to take a chance? Do we want to have our minds open? Do we want to say, wow, you know, I could either keep making the same decisions and have the same results in my life, thinking that I'm choosing consciously my life, thinking that the world that I'm in right now is forcing me to make these decisions? Or do we want to start learning more and more? And if we are already in recovery, do we want to maybe keep putting new emphasis on what else is there for us to heal, so that we can keep healing and being more and more of the light? It's an interesting thing that if I told you what my world looked like before, it was dark, I was a victim, I was guarded against everybody, and I felt like it was a dog-eat-dog world. I felt like the world was full of people that were horrible, and I would focus on it. And the world now is more to be inspired in, to join with, to realize that if there is something coming up, it's an opportunity for me to heal it, and it's much more solution-oriented, and I've learned tools and different ways of thinking. Now, like I said last time, and I'll probably keep saying it, but I'm not totally healed. None of us are totally healed. Oh, sorry, I spoke for you guys. But but the truth is that there's something beautiful in that, you know, that we get to just keep molding our own clay.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the idea of being solution oriented, and you know, we've talked a little bit about how like it's uncomfortable because like I want you to feel sorry for me so you'll take care of me and love me and not make me do things. Like I want that, you know, naturally I want that, but how much more enriched is my life when I get to be a part of life, you know, and not just have people do for me.
Okay, so we're going to go to our break now. And please remember that the opinions expressed here are strictly those of the people who gave them, and they don't represent any 12-step program. Or should they replace your own intuition or professional medical advice? And so we'll see you in a little bit. Thank you. Welcome back. I just want to let you know that you can watch us on Facebook, YouTube, and on Amazon Fire TV, and you can listen to us on the PHLV Radio app, or get our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeart Radio. And if none of that makes any sense to you, just go to themeetingspace.com, where we're going to be posting the videos every week. And also, if you go to my Facebook and try to join my Facebook, which I have I think now 5,000 friends. So there's a couple of people left I can join. I'll guide you over to that as well. Okay, so we're back. We were just finishing talking about more of the overt, heavy addiction signs. You might lose, the peace that you have in your life in a big way. You might lose your freedom. You might end up in jail. You might end up, these are ways that you have to eventually recognize that you have a problem. But a lot of times people won't stop until they get to a place where they see that alcohol or addiction was the common denominator in a lot of the things that happened with them. But really, we want to talk about and finish talking about all of the different things that you might be experiencing that might even not have to do with alcohol and drugs specifically, but they might as well. But any kind of behavior that is not necessarily, if you're really, really honest with yourself, super healthy and solution-oriented and allows you to grow and to experience your life in all the ways that you feel you're meant to experience it in this world. There are things that we do, and they're common for all the different addictions that we have. For example, if it's alcohol specifically, it's switching types of alcohol. It's switching from beer to wine to vodka. It's saying, I'm not going to drink with them. I'll just drink with them instead. It's changing the time that we do it. It's, I'm not going to drink at night in this place, but I'll drink in the afternoon, or I'm not going to drink in the afternoon anymore. I'm going to do it over here. And this is my problem. And that's my problem. And instead of actually being willing to say, maybe I don't drink, maybe I take a period of time, take a break from it. The mind's not going to go there. Let's just try to just alter it a little bit. Let's control it. Let's have somebody who, hey, don't let me drink more than this. Don't let me use this, blah, blah, blah. And you put somebody else in charge of that, thinking that I'll be okay because that person's there. Or, hey, I won't get a DUI because I'm going to be with somebody who is my designated driver. Right. And therefore, or, you know what? I have the solution. I know how to live my life. I'm just going to stay at home. So all my drinking now is at home. And at the end of my drug addiction, that's what ended up happening with me. Mm-hmm. I would start off my day and I would be at work and I would be all the focused on all the things and being able to work with people. And then halfway through, I started thinking about, part of my mind started piecing off to think about what I was going to do later, what I was going to do later. And I would be more and more white-knuckling it until the night came. And the next thing you know, I know where to go. I know who to get it from. I know what I'm doing. I know I have my plan already for my night. And not realizing that the whole narrative that's in my head is not anything that's going to be good for me, and not thinking that that's a bad thing. Right. I actually felt like in some weird way that self-medicating or checking out was my way of loving myself. Mm-hmm. I didn't like the way I felt. I didn't like the narrative I had about my life, and I didn't like myself. And I felt like this was what I was going to do to make myself feel better. And that meant that I cared about myself. Mm-hmm. And not recognizing that there's this really cool saying that first a man takes a drink, then the drink takes a drink, and then the drink takes the man. Mm-hmm. And also, there's this thing that happens in addiction, whether it's gambling, whether it's smoking, whether it's pills, alcohol, whether it's sex addiction, love addiction, whether it's a relationship addiction, whether it's codependency, on and on. There's something that happens that's the common thing, and it's a click. You clicked on the experience. You clicked on the person. You clicked on the drug. You clicked on the gambling. You clicked on something in it. In that moment, it became special. Mm. It became a new little higher power for you. Mm-hmm. And you decided, where was this? This is good. This is what I need. This is who I am. This is perfect for me. And it changes the way you feel. And in that moment, you think this is it. Then you go and spend the rest of your life, possibly, chasing the way you felt that day. And it never feels that exact way again. Mm-hmm. I just got the chills. Mm-hmm. It's the memory of it. Mm-hmm. Even the idea that when somebody is like clean or sober for a while, they get to a point they're like, there's a part of the mind that's still holding out hope that one day I could go back to this lover that I had, the alcohol, the drugs, the food, the whatever. This is if I just somehow, some way, if there's a way that I could do it, drink like a normal person, whatever, like whatever. But because the idea is a fantasy. We've been chasing that high. We've been chasing that feeling like I'm going to be okay. And we don't question, why did I need something to tell me I was going to be okay? Mm-hmm. That has to mean that I wasn't okay. Mm-hmm. And there has to be a way that lasts more than a night or seconds or just in my memory. There has to be another way, something that's more consistent. And I have found in recovery, not right away, because it's a gradual process, but it's this gradual process in which I become more and more empowered as I go. Mm-hmm. And so some of the things that you might be experiencing that can indicate whether or not you might have a problem, and these are not all of them. This is just the stuff that we're talking about today, but maybe it could get your mind going to look more, or maybe if you are in recovery and there are some things that maybe you're still doing, like a lot of times people will get sober off for alcohol and drugs, and then they'll take up smoking, they'll eat more. I mean, this is normal that, in Alcoholics Anonymous, Bill W. used to put chocolate on the tables. In the beginning, it was understood that when you're coming off of alcohol, that your brain and your body are gonna go through a withdrawal. And over time, the self-medicating, the oral fixation of a lot of addictions, it shifts to something else, not necessarily as big. And sometimes people go into recovery and they stop doing the alcohol and the drugs, but they're still doing some of the other things. And but first things first, deal with the thing that's really eating their lunch. Right. And then with the same tools and the same insights and the same healing, what starts to happen is more things start coming up for healing. Yeah. And we start to face more things. Like, I promise you, I did not stop smoking when I first got into recovery. When I first started shifting, I needed one thing at a time. I needed to change the overt, heavy, mind-altering things I was doing, but there was so much that I was doing, and I could fathom, being without those things. I thought they were who I was. I was very identified with that life, and who would I be without this, this thing? But rest assured, nobody's asking you to give up everything at once or to give up anything at all. It's about when the mind becomes ready for its own journey to face something within itself that nobody outside of them can really make them do. Like our friend that nobody could tell us. We can't tell anybody else. Mm-hmm. But when we're focused on the solution and when we're focused on our own intuition, the things that start, our life gets easier from a perspective of we become more comfortable in our own skin. And so now when we stop being comfortable in our own skin, even on a lesser level, it's bigger for us and we want to do something about it.
Mm-hmm. And there's this idea of the onion, and like when we first come and try to get off of drugs and alcohol, we have one layer of the onion we're working on. And as we peel off layers and peel off layers and peel off layers, this year I got really, really sick. And it was in January that I was like, I couldn't keep anything down. I was like really, really sick. And it was because I was still putting tons of poison into my body, but it wasn't the same kind of poison. So it looked okay. And it just, I had to hit a different type of bottom where I could change another behavior and change another way of looking at things and just heal another layer of that onion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes.
Yep, I was just going to say the same thing. I think we want to hurry up and get to the root. We want to get to the root. And sometimes if we're aware, if we have an awareness of the fact that there is a root to that, right? A lot of times we think we're just working on with what's in front of us.
Right.
But we have to deal with what's in front of us so we can get to what's underneath it.
Absolutely.
So a lot of times when it's behaviors and when it's different actions and different things that we're using for substituting, it's like I always say like this, like let's start at the hedge, right? Trim the hedge back, because there's no way we're going to get to the root until you trim the hedge back. If you trim the hedge back and then you don't continue to tend to it, it's going to grow back.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. If you stop paying attention to it, it's going to grow back. Right. And so it's we can find different ways to look at it and different analogies and but it's all relative, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely. Michelle?
I had no idea how much healing I had to do. I'm like, well, I quit the vodka and the Fireball, so I'm good, right? And then I was like, I'm going to go to the gym. And I became completely addicted to it. And then my food, completely addicted to it. And people are like, that's cross addiction. I'm like, what? There's more to it? Like, there's more healing I have to do from other stuff? And I'm like, crap, I'm addicted to everything. I work out addictively. I love addictively. I clean my house addictively. I just don't dust. I throw the bed up, bed underneath, I wash the wall down, and I'm like, holy shit, I do everything addictively. Now I'm like, oh my Lanta. And this is just 3 years. I have so much to do. I thought just because I put the vodka and the Fireball down, I'm good. You know what I mean? And I'm like, nope, there's so much more. My onion is huge. You know what I mean? And I love it. And I love that I get to keep healing and growing. And I didn't realize it until I got into recovery. And I'm like,
yeah.
It's absolutely amazing. And I told my son, who's also having some issues, I'm like, I clean the house. And he was like, Mom, wow, you're getting so smart. And he's like, you're really just messed with my mind when you said that. He's like, I do that too. He's like, I tear the whole bedroom apart when I clean, and I light 16 candles, and I'm like, you're welcome. You're welcome. Mama gave you all these addictive things in your life, and you know about them at 25.
Yeah.
Where it took me to 45 to realize I had a problem, because, I was a hairstylist. It was normal and social to drink. You'd start the morning with Baileys and coffee or a mimosa, and then I never left the house without those little bottles, just in case. I started shaking really bad or something. I had them hidden everywhere. And nobody will know, right? They'll never know.
Yeah, there are two ideas that are overwhelming to somebody that's thinking, okay, maybe you're right. Maybe there might be a problem here, but that sounds daunting. You guys just scared the shit out of me. I don't know if I can handle that. And actually recognizing that the way recovery works, so we all have heard about the word denial, and we've heard it usually in a negative way. But denial is actually a built-in psychological tool that will prevent you from being too overwhelmed. So nobody needs to take on everything at once. I don't need to lose all the weight. I don't need to make all the money. I don't need to, apologize to all the people. I don't need to do all the things at once. I don't need to do that. Instead, I just need to do first things first. What's in front of me? What's going on with me? And from there, what happens is that starts to become my new way of living. I start to understand how to live without alcohol and drugs. And then something else comes up to heal. And I kind of think of life's events as as somebody with really strong hands taking my entire consciousness and shaking it like a snow globe. Because every once in a while, I'll have this period of respite. I'll be good. I'm like, wow, I'm enlightened. This is so good. I don't do alcohol and drugs anymore. I don't do that behavior anymore. I'm done.
Right.
And then something else comes up to heal.
Yeah.
And it could look like something else, like with Tay-Tay, like she was just saying, it was food. And it was maybe chemicals that, she put into her body, but not alcohol and drugs anymore. And she hadn't done that in a long time, For me, I had relationship issues. I had codependency. I had this exaggerated story about who I thought I was supposed to be in a relationship. And I have to be the one to have compassion and forgiveness. And I have to be the one stick with them, and no matter what, because after all, I'm so focused on healing, and I have to have that. I have to be that person for them, and I would stay in relationships long after all indicators were bright red and God was in the parking lot honking his horn telling me, go! What is waiting so long? And I remember one time I actually, I was talking to God or at God, and I said, I know I have to forgive him. I get it. I'm here for a reason. I'm here to help. And then I opened my mind and turned it into a question, and I'm like, right? And my intuition was like, no, I'm not guiding you to do that. And I was floored. You're kidding. My whole story of who I thought I was supposed to be again, brought up again, on the cutting board. What's true? You see, because there's so much programming that we have in our society and in being in addiction or growing up in dysfunction. There's so much programming that we think is normal, that, if you're on that merry-go-round of denial and you're the person that's the hero child and you're the one that's the teacher and the therapist and the codependent, the really, really bad codependent, but they're going to tell you how good that is. And when somebody is needing something from you because they praise you about how good you are at the thing before they ask you, right? If you identify with that, you might want to look up codependency. But what ends up happening is that in healing, you start to find that there are other things that start coming to you that you have been doing that don't work. And if you're working with a therapist, or you're in a 12-step program, or you're doing a lot of journaling, or just going about your life and banging up against people and pissing them off, and then they tell you what's wrong with you, you might have a clue that maybe there's some things that you're doing that aren't really working for you, and be open to those indicators that maybe this is not right. For me, I'll say this last thing, anger was a tool. Anger made me feel empowered and powerful. It made me feel like the person's going to hear what I have to say. And what it really was this idea, you remember Wizard of Oz with the man behind the curtain? So I would feel scared and feel like nobody's hearing me, and I would feel invisible, and I'd be afraid that I'm not going to have what I need, and whatever it is that I would tell myself, I would get angry. And what anger really was and always was fear. But that's not what it looks like. It looks like strength, but it's not, it's fear. Because I'm basically saying that my peace of mind is completely dependent upon what you're doing, that you are my higher power in this moment. That's what anger says. And I got to a point where I was like, wow, this is really, people complained. And my dog left the room. And, I got to a point where it was becoming more and more a problem, more and more to my awareness, until finally things had to happen in a big way for me to go, all right, there has to be another way. And so, you see, it seems to be about alcohol, drugs, food, sex, work. It seems to be that those are the problem. When they shift even from the understanding that we thought that they were a solution, that they made our lives more colorful, that they made our lives more comfortable, when we shifted from the understanding and the recognition that maybe they're also a problem, and maybe they are a problem, and maybe they weren't really the solution that I thought they were, I just didn't have a better way.
Right.
What happens is we recognize as we keep going that alcohol and drugs and whatever it was, that was not the solution or the problem. That the real problem, the real thing, is that I'm uncomfortable in my own skin, that I don't feel like I could trust my intuition, that I don't have the sense of self that makes me feel empowered to go wherever I need to go. I have stories that leave me resentful and full of fear. I have things that make me feel like I can't sleep at night without any additional help. And when we get down to causes and conditions, when we really get down to it, we find, even though we thought that we were going to find that we were the most horrible people or unworthy or unlovable, we find that we're really beautiful, and we're blindingly beautiful. And we have this beautiful soul. And I promise you, I would have made myself gag years ago by saying that. And now I know what I'm talking about. And so when people would talk about that, I would think they must be high. There's just no way. But it's the natural high of inspiration. And so if you are spending any of your time in your life preoccupied with whatever it is that you think might be a problem, if you plan your life around it, if you end up talking about it and you realize that the people around your life that are in your life are people that you compare whether or not they're doing it and whether or not you feel comfortable based on you being able to feel comfortable doing it. If you're trying to control it, the amount you do, when you do it, if you're preoccupied by it, if you start doing it before you're around other people so that they wouldn't see that you have a problem, if you're hiding the behavior, if you're hiding the substance, if you're canceling plans, if you're less reliable, if your world's gotten smaller, if there are things that you tell yourself you can't do anymore because you don't know if you're going to be able to do it and be able to drink or able to do whatever it is. If there have been negative consequences in your life that you feel like you can't, that you feel bad about, or that you feel like, oh my God, that cop was just a you know what, or, you know, man, that person just gave me a rough ed, or anything that's going on, if you're having negative consequences that you're rationalizing or justifying, look to see if there's any kind of coping mechanism that you were doing that could be contributing to the problem. And if you are finding that there are things that you wish that you could do in your life, but for some reason you think that that's super far away and it's impossible for you to even do it, you know, there's help. There's help for wherever you're at. You don't have to be the person who loses everything. You don't have to be the person who ends up getting told that they have liver failure. You don't have to be the person who ends up going to jail or to prison. You don't have to be the person who has people come and take their kids. You don't have to be the person who loses a partner. You don't have to be the person, any of that. You don't have to be the person who lives a life feeling like you're just going through the motions, flipping through channels on the proverbial TV. You can actually, little by little, join us and have a life that you couldn't possibly imagine, but a life that is beyond your wildest dreams. And it's not to get and to get and to get, but to be finally able to be empowered in this life and be around other people who actually want to see you happy.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly, I mean, you said it perfectly. Yeah.
Okay, well, we reached the end of our show. We really are excited about these shows, and we're so happy that you're joining us. If you're interested in being on this show, or you have a topic, or there's somebody else that you feel would be great to be on this show, we have a lot of topics that we're going to be covering over the weeks. This is a weekly show, and it airs every Friday at noon, and we would love to have you. You could come to the meeting space.com, and there is an intake form there that you could fill it out as well as you can. And if there is something that you're interested in that we feel that you would be great for the show, we'll contact you, and we would love to have you. And please share this video with anybody that you know, because we would like to reach as many people as possible. You never know what that sharing of the video will do to send a ripple effect through the people that you know to help them heal.
Absolutely.
So thank you guys for joining us.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
The opinions expressed here are strictly those of the people who gave them and do not represent any 12-step program or should replace your own intuition or professional medical advice. Thank you for joining us today on The Real Recovery Show. We'd like to give a special thanks to our sponsor and gracious host, PHLV Radio, here in Las Vegas. Thank you, and see you next week.